Mario Kart World versus Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. Which one is better? Which one has more value? And which one should you get? Well, I'll answer all those questions in this video because, well, you know what? I've played both of them for several hours, and I sure have a lot to say about both of these things. I'm going to be going over several categories, and then I'll talk about Mario Kart, and then I'll talk about Sonic. And then after each category, I'll say which one's better, or my opinions on how they compare and all that good stuff. So let's just get started because we have 15 categories to look at. Oh my goodness gracious, it's gonna be a good time. First off, I want to talk about the overall core gameplay and mechanics, things like the controls, the drifting, the boosting, items, all that stuff. So first of all, let's talk about Mario Kart World. Now, I think Mario Kart World actually sets the standard for how a racing game kind of is, like just a mascot racer. Every game, every racing game, they base their games off of Mario Kart. And Mario Kart has a proven formula. I mean, it's the most selling game, the best selling game on the Nintendo Switch, and always beats the competitors and the competition. So first of all, I gotta just say, I mean, it's kind of crazy that we're having this discussion because I think this is the one racing game, Sonic Racing, that might actually have a decent chance in beating Mario Kart World right now. But anyways, let's talk about Mario Kart. How does it feel? Feels amazing. It feels really, really good. The controls are tight. The classic drift and boost mechanic are here and done very well. I feel like item balancing is one of the very thoughtful and unique mechanics that Mario Kart does very well. And yeah, it just feels really good. One thing I've noticed about Mario Kart World is that it does feel a little bit floaty in a way. Everything feels a lot more cartoony and kind of squishy. Whenever you drift in Mario Kart, your whole vehicle kind of like morphs and jumps and drifts, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just can feel a little less tight in some regards, but it's really not. It's nice visually and it actually looks pretty decent. I think something that Mario Kart World does very well is the in-air mechanics. What I mean by that is like tricks, going off into shortcuts, bouncing off other players, and even just some of the wild shortcuts that I've seen online. Like, people can really maneuver these Mario Kart tricks and tracks in very unique ways, and I think that's done mostly on purpose by the developers, but I think a lot of this stuff was just, like, found on accident. Like, just the fact that you can jump off a wall, jump again off of some, like, random light in the middle of the road, and then grind on, like, a fence. It's like, what the heck? It's insane. It's also very polished. Like, not only does it look and feel great, but there's a sense of quality that Mario Kart games have that I've never seen any kart racer beat, and that includes Sonic Racing. It all feels clean, polished, like everything is happening on purpose. You know, when you get hit, your car now rolls and tumbles, and then you perfectly line back up to start going, and it feels less of like it just stopped for no reason. You know what I mean? So if I had to give core gameplay and mechanics like a 1 out of 10, I'd probably give Mario Kart World like a 10. It has set the standard for kart racers moving forward. And now if you compare that to Sonic Racers CrossWorlds, this is, I think, one of the weakest elements in the game, but it really isn't that weak. I guess it's just kind of a little more weak compared to Mario Kart World. Let's talk about it. First of all, the controls and responsiveness. I mean, I gotta say, maybe the controls and responsiveness were like a little bit different for me because I played Sonic CrossWorlds on the Nintendo Switch. So let me just get that out of the way. I played it on the Nintendo Switch, and there's no Nintendo Switch 2 edition out yet. So I technically was playing the Switch 1 edition. And because that game was running at 30 frames per second, I really don't think I got a tight grasp on how tight and responsive these controls feel. Now, that being said, I did play it on the PS5 and the Steam Deck just to kind of like test it out. And oh my goodness, it's so much better. It is so much better in 60 frames per second, to the point where if you're actually worried or confused if you should get a PS5 or PlayStation 4 even version compared to the Nintendo Switch, I'd probably say go for the PlayStation version, unless you really want to get it on Switch 2 for when the Switch 2 comes out, because you'll be able to use it on the Switch 2. But I think that these controls do feel a little bit less tight than Mario Kart. I can't say it's not tight, but I mean, it's a little bit more finicky. But also, I don't think I've spent as much time on Sonic Racing as Mario Kart, but I feel like I played it long enough that I should be good for the controls and responsiveness. Anyways, drifting is good. It also has the classic boost system with the items as well, just like Mario Kart World. Now the boost, I actually really like how the drifting and the boost works in Sonic CrossWorlds, more than Mario Kart in a way. With the drifting and the boost in Sonic, you can do this really cool thing where if you're drifting, let's say to the left, if I wanted to quickly drift to the right, if you tap the drift button and move your stick to the right, your boost will stay active. Like, you won't lose your boost, or you won't use your boost. You'll just be able to drift both directions without losing or using your boost, which is so good. That is such a nice mechanic. I'm still trying to figure out how I can master it, but it really does make your turns and like really squiggly tracks feel like a lot of fun, especially after you master it. I also like how it shows how far along your boost is for it to like charge up. It kind of gives you a sense of wanting to finish that gauge before you use your boost. So I really like the drift and boost mechanic. It might not look the most responsive when you're using it, comparing it to like the Mario Kart squishy and drifting mechanic, but it is very satisfying when you use. Now let's talk about the items with Sonic. Obviously, coming from Mario Kart, where you have the very iconic red shell, green shell, bullet bill, and all that stuff, it's kind of difficult to switch your brain into Sonic items because a lot of these items aren't actually that recognizable. Like, there's this saw. I don't know where the saw's from, where you can throw the saw. It's kind of like a red shell. If it hits someone, it cuts the car in half. But I don't actually know what game that's referencing. Maybe I'm not a true Sonic fan. I feel like I know a lot about Sonic, but I don't know where that one's from. Or maybe it's just a random item. And then it also has very similar green and red shell things where there's like these punching arm rockets, and there's a green rocket and there's a red rocket, and they do the exact same thing. It's a little jarring sometimes. It's still trying to figure out what a lot of these items do and how to fully utilize them. But I really think the worst thing about the items is the lack of control. I feel like I don't actually understand how to use a lot of the items still, like fully utilize them. But I will say I do like that if you have an item that's able to block you and there's like an incoming projectile or something, the game will actually tell you on screen when to use your item, which is really handy. That's not something necessarily, necessary, but it's nice to have, especially if you're not fully paying attention to what item you are currently carrying. But then we also got to talk about physics, because I did talk about this with Mario Kart, how cool it was to, trick in the air and jump off walls and stuff like that. Sonic CrossWorlds doesn't have that really at all. In fact, there's a lot less air movement aside from when you're in a plane. But like if you're in your car, you're not in the air too much. And if you're in the air, it's because the game wants you to be in the air. There's like only certain spots that you can lift off the ground and do tricks. Unlike in Mario Kart, where you always have the ability to just randomly jump anytime you want and trick off of anything. With Sonic, you're just on the ground until the game gives you a ramp that you can trick off of. I think Mario Kart does tricks a little bit better, especially visually. I don't think it looks as good, but I'll get back to that. Basically, with Sonic, you're on the ground the entire time. There's no real off-road physics, and if you do go off-road, it really slows you down. So for core gameplay and mechanics for Sonic Racing, I mean, it's really good, but it is a little bit less than Mario Kart. I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10 if I had to rate the core gameplay. So core gameplay mechanics I gotta give to Mario Kart. But next, let's talk about innovation and the unique features they both have. First, let's talk about Mario Kart. What is the big hook for this Mario Kart game? Well, for Nintendo and the game, it's the big open world that you can now use and play as in Mario Kart World. The game utilizes this open world in a lot of very interesting ways. You have the new intermission tracks, which allow you to drive to a track on like a highway or whatever. And the game does pretty good at making these intermission tracks pretty fun, have a lot of items and stuff like that. They also use the open world in free roam mode. Now, if you know me at all, if you've seen any of my videos, you might know that I'm not a huge fan of the free roam mode. I like the idea, but there was a lot of things missing from it when it launched, like the P-Switch and Peach medallion collecting number. Like, you couldn't tell how many P-Switches you got. You couldn't tell how many Peach medallions you got. Well, you could know the number, but not which ones on the map, which made it very frustrating and kind of made me fall off pretty early. They actually just did an update a day before Sonic CrossWorlds, interestingly, that gave you the feature to know where these P-Switches were. But I don't know, even then, the free roam mode was kind of just fun to mess around in and build up your chops in racing. And like I said, the intermission tracks, a lot of people don't even like the intermission tracks. I think everyone kind of misses the classic Mario Kart with the 3 laps. So having only 1 lap with a really good track, then the other 2 in random intermissions, like driving on a highway, yeah, it doesn't hit as much. Now, I do really like the concept and the fact that they made it open world, but it does have its issues that I don't think Nintendo really thought out too far in advance. Sonic CrossWorlds, on the other hand, well, the main gimmick here and the unique innovation and features, the thing that they promote and sell the hardest is CrossWorlds, which are these big ring portals. Essentially, after the first track, you must go through this portal, puts you in another exclusive CrossWorlds track so that pretty much every lap you do isn't the same. But unlike the Mario Kart intermissions, all of the tracks are fun and condensed like a good kart racer should be. They really did something like Mario Kart World where they wanted to give you more than just the simple basic 3-lap track, but they made it actually a little bit better because every single lap is still fun and enjoyable, and it's different every time, and it makes the levels and the tracks feel unique as you play them. They also really played into the CrossWorlds aspect by bringing other IPs like, literally Hatsune Miku, SpongeBob, Mega Man, and Minecraft in. So I do think that Sonic CrossWorlds actually uses its main gimmick, its main feature, a lot better than Mario Kart did. I gotta say that. Next up, let's talk about the tracks and the overall world design. I kind of already mentioned this, but the tracks on Mario Kart World, I believe there's only 32. It's a good amount, but comparing that to the, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's 96, 32, it's a little bit low, but I'm hoping that they support this game in the future. But anyways, yes, there's 32 tracks. However, like I mentioned before, if you're playing in a Grand Prix or you're playing online and there's intermission tracks, there's a lot less of those really core 32 tracks that you're actually playing. And now if you look at just those 32 tracks with the 3-lap races, they are all fantastic. The design of each of them is amazing. They're all unique. They all use their environments and the music very well as you're playing through and racing through them. They're very well thought out in these 32 tracks. There's a lot of variety too, replayability, and of course, shortcuts that make it fun and unique. Now, Sonic CrossWorlds, on the other hand, I believe there's a little bit less tracks. I think there's like 24 or something, but I don't know. I could be wrong on that one, but I think there is a little bit less than 32. However, very similar thing. The environments are fantastic. Every level actually feels very different, and the replayability is pretty high, especially with how dynamic each of the races are because of this whole CrossWorlds mechanic. Like literally every lap is different. The first lap is a standard lap on the whatever course you choose. The second lap is a CrossWorlds lap, which can really be any random track. And then the third lap is the same lap as the first lap, but generally what I've noticed is that the third lap actually does have something that changes, whether that's like a big boss fight that happens on screen that can affect the map a little bit. So I think that's really cool. The shortcuts in Mario Kart are a lot better, but the environmental shifts and the altering routes are a lot better in Sonic. And I think right now, at least, there's a little bit more replayability and variety with Sonic, especially with the ongoing support that Sonic has, which is kind of crazy to say. But next, we got to talk about the character, vehicles, and customization. First up, the roster size. Mario Kart World has one of the biggest rosters in any Mario Kart game. I really like that they're pulling from every ounce of Mario games, including enemies now as racers. Even staples that surprisingly have never been in previous Mario Kart games, like the Goomba, are finally playable in this game. And you got some really deep takes like the Pianas and friggin' Parabiddy the goat. But not only is there a massive roster size, but there's actually costumes now. Finally, there's costumes. They kind of introduced costumes in Mario Kart Tour, if anyone remembers Mario Kart Tour. But yeah, they brought a lot of costumes to each character. Now, I would say the character selection screen is kind of, awful, but at least there's unique costumes for most of the mainline characters. There's some really questionable decisions, though, like the fact that Donkey Kong and Pauline only have 2 costumes, which is just bananas. See what I did there? But it's literally bananas. Like, it's crazy that there's not even more costumes for every character. Why would they only limit a certain character to a certain amount of costumes? Like, why does Mario have 8 and Lakitu only has 5? Or Donkey Kong and Pauline have 2? Or Toadette has 5? Like, why not make them all consistent? There's no way they couldn't have come up with even more costumes. It's just one of those things that really makes me feel like they're holding it back so that they can release it later and then everyone can give them an applause for adding costumes. But no, this costume should have been in the game from the very beginning, especially the Donkey Kong and Pauline ones. Like, are you kidding me? There's only 2? That's so silly. In Sonic CrossWorlds, there are 23 original Sonic characters, but then there's so many other characters from other worlds, as I mentioned. You got people from other Sonic games or Sega games, and of course, from these random third-party or other games. So while the roster size in Mario Kart is a lot bigger and broader, I feel like they're intentionally holding back a lot of the roster could be. Yes, on paper, the size and the roster is a lot better. There's something that feels weird about it. Sonic, on the other hand, is a little bit lower, but each character does have a very important role to play. Everyone has unique voice lines, and they just feel a lot more personable. They don't have costumes yet, but there's a lot more character in the Sonic characters, if that even makes sense. Like, I think one of the coolest things about Sonic CrossWorlds, this whole game, is the fact that when you join a track, like when you start a race, there are these things called rival racers, which is like your main enemy. It's the person that you are supposed to beat, that you need to beat. There is individual voice lines for each character individually. Like, it's insane. Like, Tails will say something to Shadow, and Shadow will say something back to Tails. And it's like a unique dialogue. Amy will say something to Jet the Hawk, and he'll say something back. Silver will say something to Eggman, and Eggman will, like, what the heck? There's over like 3.5 hours of just exclusive dialogue. So many tracks that really, the personality just isn't in Mario Kart World the same way it's in Sonic. Sonic is just so much more edgy, and they really, really dive deep into what makes Sonic Sonic, like that personality, which is so fantastic. Which, yes, the roster is smaller, but it makes the roster feel so much bigger because every character actually feels like a character, like there's drama involved, which I really appreciate, and I think that's really cool. And it's one of those things that you don't expect, but took so much time for them to actually figure out, that I really appreciate as a Sonic fan. Now, one issue that Mario Kart World has, or at least used to have, was the unlockables. You had to essentially, based on luck, unlock a lot of these characters that you might want to play as. You had to get the Kamek item and then throw the Kamek item and then just hope that Kamek gives you the enemy that you need to unlock, and that's how you unlock it. But they just did a patch where if you find it on the map, you can use a UFO and suck it up, and then you're good to go. So they made it at least easier for that. Costumes as well, a little more complicated because you got to eat food for some reason. Feels like they added this whole food mechanic to Mario Kart just to do these costumes, and then after you've unlocked all the costumes, then it's just food. Like, it's kind of weird. Sonic, on the other hand, they don't have any unlockable characters. Which brings me to my next part, the vehicle parts and customization. I really appreciate the vehicles in Mario Kart World because, well, to be fair, I hated the customization in Mario Kart 8. I hated how you had to pick your own wheels, you had to pick your own body of the car, and then you had to pick a glider. Not only did that take so long for a lot of, people to actually pick it and choose, but there was also like a meta that people figured out. There was like one set of vehicles that was just really good and everybody used. And then at that point, you might as well just use that because then, you're going to win every race. But mainly it's how long it took everyone that you were playing with to choose what vehicle they wanted to play as. That was the worst. Thankfully, in Mario Kart World, though, they removed the customizable vehicles. You can still pick the vehicle you want, but I'm glad they took out all the customization and everything like that. It makes playing in multiplayer a lot quicker and faster, and I feel like there's a lot more variety now, which is kind of odd considering, there technically is less variables, but I don't know, I like it. Sonic CrossWorlds, however, they have full kart customization, but like to the extreme. You can add decals. You can change the front half and the back half of your car, giving it different stats. You can change the color and even like crazy things like the horn. Thankfully though, unlike Mario Kart 8, which had a huge customization issue for me, a lot of the vehicles that you use are just, there's a set one that you can use, and then if you wanted to use a customized one, you could customize it. You're not required to customize every vehicle you choose for every single track. You can just use a basic one, and for the single players out there, I think this is mainly for you if you want to customize your karts. They're both unique in their own way. I like the flexibility, but not the necessity of the tracks and cars in Sonic CrossWorlds. Oh, I also love the hoverboards. Those are so fun to play, and they look so satisfying. Oh my goodness. There's really pros and cons to both. A little more variety in Sonic, but yeah, this is a toss-up. I think this is just whatever you prefer to play as. I guess there also is something to say about the overall design. I think the Sonic vehicles look a lot more modern and kind of, adult, you could say. Not in like a 18 plus way, but they look sleek. They look good. Mario Kart vehicles are a lot more cartoony, and I don't like to say childish because, they're not childish necessarily, but they're a lot more cartoony and, flexible and bouncy and all that stuff. So again, it just really depends on what you like. Now, multiplayer and modes. Which one is better, Mario Kart or Sonic? I believe both of these games can do 4-player split screen. From a performance standpoint, they both will do 30 frames per second with 4 players. But local co-op in racing games, it's a thing. if I had to choose right now to pick which one I would play split screen, it would absolutely be Mario Kart, because Mario Kart is just so much more recognizable and understandable. Like, I feel like anyone can pick up Mario Kart and just play it. So if I was playing with a bunch of randoms, like in my house with me, if there was random people in my house and I need to play a racing game, I'd probably turn on Mario Kart. It's a lot easier to understand. Even though they're essentially so similar, Mario Kart is Mario Kart and everyone knows Mario Kart. Now, when it comes to multiplayer online, this is where things completely change. Mario Kart World Online is so bare bones. Like, it's just almost not even worth playing. And what I mean by that mainly is that there's really no reason to play online, because there's no ranking system, there's no progression system with online play. Like, you can get a score or whatever, but there's no ranking. I also find it very annoying that it is so difficult to play with your actual friends with randoms online. Like, joining a lobby with a bunch of randoms and then playing with your friends with all those people, it's just the worst, because it's so difficult to do it. You have to perfectly time what time you want to join this lobby, and then the lobby fills up before you can even get in, and then your friend, it's just, I can't believe there's not a system with this big of a game, this big of a budget game, and online is this bad and bare bones, which makes me feel great about Sonic CrossWorlds, because they actually have a decent online experience. First of all, not only is it crossplay with other platforms, which obviously Mario Kart can't do, but also Sonic CrossWorlds, you can have a group of friends. You can have a group of 4 people, and then you can all join in races together at the same time, which is, such a basic thing for an online game, especially like a racing game. But better yet, you can also rank up. That's right, you're playing races ranked. You go from E- and you can go up to S or something like that. So hands down, Sonic CrossWorlds has better online multiplayer. Next up, let's go to progression and unlocks. Like I was kind of saying earlier, the most progression you can get in Mario Kart World is the Grand Prix trophies. That's the best thing you can get based on a progression standpoint, I guess. Unless you count unlocking your, vehicles and P-switches and all that stuff, or vehicles and characters. However, the unlocking mechanic on Mario Kart World is a lot more mundane, I'd say. The only way that you can collect vehicles is by collecting coins, and after a certain amount of coins, a new vehicle at random will unlock. Like I said earlier, if you want to unlock a certain character, you have to either find it in the open world and suck it up with a UFO, or you have to rely on Kamek. Now, I love that you can actually unlock characters, but I think unlocking characters in Mario Kart is a little lame. Sonic CrossWorlds, however, like I mentioned, it doesn't have any unlockable characters, but they do have unlockable vehicle parts and cosmetics and stuff like that. And the way you do that is that you get these coupons that you get just by doing really any mode in the game. And then you can spend those on any vehicle piece you want, which in my opinion is a lot better, because it actually, it lets you choose what you want, what vehicle you want. And if you want to go for 100%, then you can go for 100%. Now, when it comes to character unlocks, yes, that's right, you can't do character unlocks, but there are the DLC characters, and I think those DLC characters, you get a bunch of free Sega characters, and if you choose to pay, then you choose to pay. The big progression mechanic, though, in Sonic CrossWorlds is the new gadgets mechanic. You can get these gadgets and then add them to your gadget book, I guess you could say. And as you play more, you have more slots to add your gadgets, and these gadgets can do things like give you boosts at the beginning of a match, allow you to do tricks faster, allow you to hold more coins so that your top speed is a little bit faster, things like that. And that progression is a lot better, especially if you're playing single player. There's a lot more single player variety in Sonic CrossWorlds than Mario Kart. I have to give progressions and unlocks to Sonic CrossWorlds. I think they handle that a lot better, especially the progression standpoint. Next is the technical and performance. Mario Kart World, fantastic game. Looks great, runs at a solid 60 frames per second, 4K. Loading times are decent. Never crashes. Sonic CrossWorlds, now I played it on the Nintendo Switch, so it's a completely different experience than really it should be. The frame rate was 30 frames per second, which is not ideal at all in any kart racer, but because I was playing on the Nintendo Switch, the frame rate was bad. The loading times were long. It never crashed, but if you play on a PS5, holy smokes, that is the way to do it. It looks fantastic. In fact, I think it looks better than even Mario Kart if you have it on a high-end PC or a current-gen console. So I'm really excited for the Switch 2 version. And you can also boost that frame rate on high-end PCs to 120 frames per second and 4K. You know what I mean? So the cap for how good Sonic will look is a lot higher than how Mario Kart would look. Now, the overall aesthetic and presentation, Mario Kart just has, they have their presentation locked. Like I said, it's just a high quality game. Every soundtrack is fantastic. The art style is locked in. The effects are good. The UI design is perfect. And it's going to be difficult to get sick of the Mario Kart World aesthetic. Sonic, however, the art style is a little more all over the place. The UI design is pretty cheap feeling. Like, for example, when the items are scrambling in the top left corner where the item box is, it just shows random PNGs just floating and then transitioning to other ones, which just doesn't look as good. It doesn't look as quality. It's a little cheaper. Then you also have a bunch of random UI stuff that pops up on the screen. Feels a little more bloated when it comes to the UI and the effects and all that stuff. The soundtrack slaps. The art style is good. It's decent. So I definitely got to give the aesthetic and, presentation to Mario Kart World. The final thing I kind of want to touch on is the support that this game is going to get. I have to just applaud Sega for explaining how they're going to support this game even into the end of next year in 2026. Like, they are going to be supporting this game with patches, but mainly like DLC characters and new tracks and stages. And it really does seem like they will be adding stuff. And I love that they're just being open and honest about how they plan to support it, especially that this game is already a pretty expensive price at $70. Like, this game is $70. So it's pretty expensive. And when you have a game this expensive, I really do expect them to at least explain to you or briefly share how they plan to support the game moving forward. Mario Kart completely fails at this. Especially because this game, Mario Kart World, is $80. The fact that Mario Kart World is $80 full dollars, and they have not even mentioned how they're going to be supporting this game, haven't given us any DLC ideas or really any consistent patches, just kind of blows my mind. Like I said earlier, it's kind of crazy that in free roam mode, they just added such basic mechanics like finding where the P-switches you collected are or finding where the Peach medallions are. Like, those are such basic things that I'm surprised an $80 game didn't have. And they finally gave it to us a day before Sonic CrossWorlds came out, because that's just how it is. That's just what they did. Now, I think overall, these are both really good games in their own right. I think if you don't play many racing games, you're probably going to find a lot more enjoyment out of Mario Kart just because of how simple it feels and, how iconic everything kind of just is already. Sonic CrossWorlds is more for the, I think, hardcore racing fan, someone who wants a little bit more challenge and wants to know exactly how their game is going to be supported. So it's kind of very difficult to give a definitive answer. Right now, though, I'm very much enjoying Sonic CrossWorlds, but there's just something about Mario Kart, I think I do like the gameplay of Mario Kart a bit better, but Sonic CrossWorlds is really close to it, and I think it comes down to personal preference at this point, and also your budget. Sonic CrossWorlds, I almost guarantee, is going to go on sale for Black Friday. So, if you're waiting for which one's going to be cheaper, Sonic CrossWorlds is probably going to be $40 by Black Friday, whereas Mario Kart is going to stay at $80 for at least 3 years, I would say, and you have no idea how they're going to be supported. So if we were buying these based on just how the companies are treating these games, Sonic is better. But I think from a gameplay perspective, if money or the budget really isn't like a concern or a thought, then probably Mario Kart World is a little bit better, especially if you already have a Switch 2. If you only have a Switch 2, Mario Kart obviously is better right now because there's no Switch 2 edition for CrossWorlds. But I like them both in their own way. Let me know which one you prefer. And thanks for watching. If you like this second channel style where I just kind of talk about these games, let me know in the comments what you liked or if there's something I can work on, as I'm still getting used to talking without a script. So thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, if you want. And I'll see you in the next one. See you later.